The Tarnished and the Renowned, the hero of the lands between, arguably the technical fourth Elden Lord, and one of not the most powerful character within the Elden Ring verse. First is the Time Patroller, the hero of Dragon Ball's cosmology, macrocosms, and all around the hero of time and space. One of the most powerful characters within the outer wall case of scaling of the Dragon Ball verse, and both similar characters, both custom created characters for the case of games that allow you to create your own characters. With Elden Ring, Dragon Ball Universe 1 to 2, which in this case if you consider within the game's technical story structure, where Dragon Ball Universe 1's Time Patrol is someone different, but Dragon Ball Universe 2's character is different as well, and also arguably more powerful, which I'll explain more how. I will be using Dragon Ball Universe 2's character. Dragon Ball Universe 1 and 2 are both busting games and stellar stories in some different aspects, right? Very unique. But when it comes down to why I'm doing this video, besides them being similar, is both some ignorance and also some glazed takes about both characters I want to inform, tell you all a little bit more of the education and greater investment of knowledge that I put myself in with, and most importantly, just spill a little bit more about the Tarnish, a very unique and interesting character, the power scale, and I've changed my opinion about how I've scaled him in the past multiple times. My limiting factor when it comes down to him talking against Thor in a fight still stands. I think Thor slams the Tarnish still, not as easily like I thought before, but I don't think I need to provide more case of reason than I already did in my video. If you guys want to debate about that, I'm still open. I'm open to debate about anything that I've said, still considerably, even if like I've changed them or admit that I'm wrong in them, whatever the case may be. But simply put, man, I probably believe that the Tarnished is one of the most interesting characters to talk about, and the Time Patrol is as well. But enough talk, let's go and get into it. The Tarnished is one of the humans in the lands between. The Tarnished are a sacred word name for the case of a race of people now discarded all the things that made them what they were in the original prime. Look at their outer stand. The Tarnished come from the Badlands, a great deal of the descendants of the great legendary Godfrey, first Elden Lord. And truly, he's the second, we're not going to get to that. A.K.A. Horlu, King of the Badlands, this barbaric king, behemoth, warrior like no other. The Tarnish in Elden Ring holds graces all across of it, because grace in Elden Ring gives the player and the greater deal of the race that is the player life, and grants them the capability to have immortality of a high scale, pretty much being you cannot disperse the Tarnished from existence on a general consecutive stand in a physical to theoretical plane without entirely dissolving them of grace. And as long as a grace or any substance of that matter is there, the Tarnished can always come back to life. The Tarnished across the playthrough of Elden Ring within the first playthrough goes from Elden Ring to challenges, trials, and errors, but just talking about general stand, the Tarnished pretty much will run through consecutively all form of opposition bosses of the mainline game, and pretty much the Tarnished is a One Punch Man-esque character throughout his verse, and at the lowest ends would be standing from a multi-solar system level character to easily consistently a universal plus character, as he defeats some people like Udon, Moog, Margot, Melania, and more, who all will scale in that regard and even higher, especially over scaling the witch Rani without her even needing to be in Goddess of the Lands Between form, making him easily over them within the prime or not, and going on to defeat a greater consecutive deal of people like a reformed prime version of Renala, who scale made it in the case of someone like Radagon, who obviously in his prime, and even if not, was held as one of the most powerful person, being tied to Queen Madoka in the case of power, as they're the one and the same, with him being the enforcer side of her. And narratively within the game, in all accounts, is one of not the most toughest opponent next to Elden Beast, the literal conception of order and discord in self, and at the same time has defeated Horlu, aka Godfrey, who is one of not the mightiest Tarnished skill wise and one of the most skilled people in the game. He also has fought the case of the Beast Clergyman, aka Gordonk, or Gorank, how the fuck you say his name, aka Malekith, the Black Blade, the most feared being in the lands between at a time, and the death of the demigods. No demigod did not fear him, not just because of the Black Blade, but because of his renowned skill, as Malekith defeated the Glormite Queen and is a beast like no other. He's a shadow, aka half-brother to Queen Marika, for a bunch of different reasons I'm not going to get into. What is being said, the Tarnished also went about in the DLC facing great echelon different people as well. You know what I'm saying? With that case, my lord, I not play DLC, kind of shit is cancer. Not to actually critique it in that regard entirely, but eventually, if obviously you finish the DLC, you face Primordion, Mix being amped and hailed to a whole new stand with the case of the help of Mikola. And with this being said, Mikola graces man with the power of a god damn there, and you eventually go and defeat him. With all this being said, with the case of two others to also be talked about with the greater case scaling of him, this easily makes the Tarnished one of, again, the most powerful character in Elden Ring. Defeated all these different people with no sweat being shown, and the Tarnished is undeniably a beast like no other. The Tarnished's skill and other accolades and stuff like that is a very mixed thing, but simply put, he doesn't have any concrete set matter of skill and capabilities. There's been accounts because of the fact that he comes from the Badlands and all Tarnished would, that he would have, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of years of experience, and that's not concrete. Someone like Corluke Godfrey, that's, suffice to say, proven and showcased. But the Tarnished, though, as a person, with the fact that he defeated all these great high-octane skilled, experience, and beyond comprehension people, the fact that he doesn't seem to have any deliberate knowing of skill, but just changing from weapon to weapon, grossing in strength, turning wound to mystery because of Melina or another person. He just grabs these weaponry, hacks, artifacts, whatever the fuck, and is able to use them just willy-nilly. Right, he be jacking things from people like Kratos, and he just be pulling all different pieces of matter as thing plays with him, like shit. But when it comes down to the credit of his arsenal, it is beyond comprehension large. So I would be here for years trying to basically tell you pretty much you could have all the arsenal, all the weaponry, all the equipment of his adversaries, going from hacks, low form, triggers of skill and adaptability from them. You know, being able to fly half mirror, have super speed after image, hypothetically teleport, possibly battlefield removal, create other different cosmic hacks, be able to have weapons of gods, destined death, scarlet rot, black flame, light beams, be able to pull all different cases of matter of things when it comes down to his greater arsenal. But I would say for this, since we're using the case of Elden Lord Tarnished, of default Elden Ring playthrough, and whatever weapons he can have in the DLC, just give him all that shit. I don't think I need to explain more. Just throw that shit in there. I don't care. Simply put, the Tarnished is a beast in that regard. Now, when it comes down to the greater case of his catalog and or speed, things along that, the Tarnished has faced Posidisax and Bel, two beings that have the capability to exist beyond time, and both people that fought for the means of kingship in Missoula. Posidisax and Bel stalemated, and that's the reason why Posidisax doesn't have his three other heads, and most importantly, why Bel is damaged himself, with Bel having damaged wings and a body, and the fact that Posidisax only has two heads in comparison from the matter of having his three other heads in comparison. But the thing is that this helps with speed, but also helps with a thing that in the versus battle community we call durability negation, and that is where a character could obviously hit you in a way that bypasses general by default form of durability. And how this is the case is because Posidisax, his scales exist beyond time, and they disrupt time to be the way they are. When the Tarnished hurts Placidia Sachs and Bell, because they both scaled to each other. And even though it's not very concrete if Godfrey fought Placidia Sachs or not, I was spotting misinformation because the two Bell came. I think it was a solid, reasonable assumption that Godfrey did. There's no proven stuff of that. Godfrey did fight in the war against the dragons, and obviously Placidia Sachs left the case of his domain of knowledge because of the fact of Bale, and also to avoid to call my queen by a different account. But if you somehow still think that, I mean, that's not really a strong argument. Don't get me wrong. Godfrey, he's a strong ass nigga. But the account that he defeated Placidia Sachs already debunked that in my new tier list. Y'all can see that on the community post if y'all want to know how I feel about the Elden Ring power scale and beyond that. But besides that, back to the point. Like, simply put, Placidia Sachs, he disrupts time by just existing in scale. The Tarnished is able to hurt Placidia Sachs and hurt Bale and hurt people that are narratively stronger than that. So with that being said, the Tarnished, when he hits you, regardless of the weapon that it is, even if it doesn't have this, does a thing where he disrupts time slash the case of consciously built-in thing of a person. With this being said, that would make the case of the Tarnished be able to hit a person on a fourth dimensional scale, meaning that unless you have an inept case of hack or way to negate, or you're higher than the 4D case of splitting, that means that the Tarnished could pretty much hit a bunch of characters and pretty much split them on a bond that they can never have a way to counter or really push against, because again, he's not just slashing at the body normally like how Raiden with the HF blade is, but this case is not just splitting at the atomic structure, it is simply splitting at the way your body is built up. So that right there, simply put, makes a Tarnished someone not to be trifled with. With speed as well, this would obviously make him infinite, to depending how you perceive the arguments of it, immeasurable, maybe even irrelevant. But the thing is, I would say because it would be a sense of first perception mixed thing, I would say probably because of how you got to Placidia Sachs that he would be just infinite to considerably immeasurable, because the first interpretation was that he just exists beyond plane of time and space, aka just time. Time does not exist. Where the Tarnish is just gone. Irrelevant speed is not that by definition, depending on how you perceive it. That's infinite to immeasurable, depending on the sake, right? Because the definitions have been kind of mixed within the versatile community. As I explained, infinite is a form of speed where your speed is unquantifiable and is a unmeasurable, unsolidified, unsanctioned speed. Immeasurable is speed that can be quantified by general speed scale. Irrelevant is type of speed that is beyond the speed equation. And then there's something higher than that, you know, maybe I don't know, like someone calling this character, where speed is literally seen as a joke to people like him. But that's the difference. The Tarnished would scale to me probably in the infinite to immeasurable, because he fought two people and more that are able to be beyond the plane of time and or the case of the confines of it. Because time is not moving in Placidia Sachs boss battle. He exists beyond time, making the Tarnished infinite speed. So in conclusion, the Tarnished is a universal plus infinite to immeasurable, fourth dimensional splitting, very powerful, hacksy individual. Now, enough talk with him, time to go ahead and talk about the Time Patrol. The Time Patroller of Dragon Ball's Universe 2, the hero of Dragon Ball's cosmology, and one of the most interesting custom created characters, coming from a verse that's my favorite verse of all time in fiction. Rest in peace to Akira Toriyama. You will be missed, King. Rest in paradise. This character of Dragon Ball's Universe 2, within the name, time patrols time within a matter of order, the Supreme Kai of Time, and with future Trunks, they're going to stop anomalies and disruption, disorder within the timelines, for all Dragon Ball within the mix. Dragon Ball's Universe's own unique what-ifs and alternate timelines / universes mixed with Dragon Ball heroes. The Time Patroller is very powerful, and the scaling sparks off from the end of Dragon Ball's Universe 1, with that Time Patroller of that case game facing Demigod Demigra and being a character that is able to form, the case of the multiverse, be a threat to it on a multi-higher scale, be a problem to where even though he's not stronger than the case of the Beerus of Dragon Ball's universe, he was said to be a threat that possibly could match him and stand to him and do a bunch of matter of different things, and it's just a very powerful and untamed and unchained form beast within the cosmology, doing a bunch of shit like no other when it came down to the matter of posing an ultimate sense of threat. And so with that being said, Demigra, in comparison with the scaling of Goku and Beerus, who are able to go ahead and shake the entire macrocosm within the universe, that would easily be a low multiversal case of feat, and same time stacking on with facing million characters that go more superbly into that scale to even higher, like the case of full power Mira being able to stalemate, to the case of Xeno Goku at this lower point due to 17 arguably has surpassed Xeno Goku from a statement of Whis, who's a very knowledgeable person within Dragon Ball and knows the scaling of people like no other, because I mean he is the case of the teacher and advisor to a god of destruction who's one of the most powerful gods of destruction, Lord of Beerus, the god. And same time, you know, because of having all different matter of Dragon Ball moves, weapons, skills, items, and capabilities, he would be one of the most powerful skilled people within the verse. With that being said, when it comes down to speed, he's a whole different matter of animal, because of scaling over all different grade case speed echelon and different form of strength echelon within Dragon Ball's Universe 1. This would make the Dragon Ball's Universe 2 Time Patroller being easily massively faster than that at a low end to infinite to a little bit more tiny bit strongly immeasurable. And obviously this is because the Dragon Ball Z Universe 1 Time Patroller defeated Demigod Demigra, who was fought and beaten regardless of your ending, with getting amped and helped by Xeno Goku within the plane in between timelines and just bucking and banging out like no other. And then same time within the series, also the fact that, simply put, the case of the different characters that you fight in Dragon Ball Z Universe 2 and a greater higher scaling stands with that. And it's just the fact that Universe 2's Time Patroller is just way beyond a lot of the scale of that stuff, especially with his different moves and skills, and regardless of your race within the case of Universe 2. And I don't mean that as like a literal like race skin color, I'm talking about like in the form of like your actual culture, civilization, you know, Saiyan, Namekian, Majin, all that stuff. If you're saying, let's say it's the poster boy for the Dragon Ball Z Universe 2, then in this case, as obviously you see, he would be a Saiyan, and in this case, he would have more than his transformations of Saiyans go into God state, different techniques, ultimate forms, things like that, that would help him extend beyond comprehension. I'll be here for hours talking about it. If you watch Dragon Ball / Reddit, you know what I mean with this. But if it's not obvious, the case of Dragon Ball Z Universe 2's Time Patroller is way beyond the Tarnished. It is very obvious that there's a lot more to be talked about, but at the same time, I already thought the case of the Rogue One / the Rogue Guy for the case of their scans on Elden Ring. I appreciate him for education. Yo, check him out. He got some more busted content on the way. Same time, shout out to Tempest, but also for the person that helped me with this, thank you. Not in the case of like actually knowing, but in the case of putting me on game with some greater case scaling and understanding of the Dragon Ball Z Universe 2's scaling with the case of the Time Patroller, right? So I just want to go ahead and say I appreciate you for that. But the thing is, even if the Time Patroller outscales the Tarnished, it is a mixed double split sword between two things that the Tarnished can really have, which is the case of the fact that he cannot die conventionally, and that his way of hurting a person is something that the Time Patroller has not faced. But the two counters is that even if the Dragon Ball's Universe 2 Time Patroller cannot defeat the Tarnished eventually from matter of physical hitting and different stuff, there's a lot of things that the Tarnished could not face from the Time Patroller that would be able to put him down. As because the Time Patroller has all these informal moves that would help him go ahead and slaughter the Tarnished when it comes down to hacks, battlefield possible removal, conceptual erasure, different blasts and things like that that could just annihilate the Tarnished whole fucking comprehension. The Tarnished should either be overwhelmed, flat out body, and just the pure fact that because of the fact that the Time Patroller is on a higher scale and beyond the fourth dimensional monster. I don't think I need to go and explain this more, but when you're at the low multiversal stuff, you're hitting a bunch of different dimensions that are beyond that general cusp. In comparison with other people that Tarnished has faced, he's also faced people arguably in Dragon Ball that you could say hit on that same bond, especially fighting in between dimensions and spiraling out ridiculously on different cusps of dimensions, being powerful like motherfuckers that are on that same stuff, right? And so with that being said, that easily like this disperse the whole argument of, oh, the fourth dimensional splitting keys is beyond that. But the main way I see if it really take into, because this is going to be a everlasting case of battle, as both of these motherfuckers are hard to kill. Simply put, the Time Patrol is going to keep beating in the Tarnished until either Tarnished loses morale, he Hakai's them, which conceptually erases a person, which the Tarnished has not faced, and any capability for that to possibly happen to the Tarnished. Either Tarnished, even though pushing beyond, either was a lower form thing than this, and I would argue that Destined Death could not work in the same form, as Hakai destroys multiple form of spiritual bonds, and Destined Death arguably does too, because that's conceptual erasure, but that works in a matter of decaying a person's soul, while this entirely destroys it. Because Destined Death, if you compare the gameplay, even though we shouldn't let that be a slate, because I don't think I can explain that gameplay and actual lore are two different things. That is why that is split. Alright? But as well, with the second thing is being more concretely faster, even if you believe that, like what I was talking about with the case of the Tarnished versus Thor in comparison, or even with Malekith versus August, with them being equal in speed, the Time Patroller is so much more stronger and has a greater echelon and rack of all trades of equipment, skills, and powers. The Tarnished could just objectively not keep up. The only way I see the Tarnished getting out of this is that if the Time Patroller would not use his greater echelon of capabilities to really put pressure on the Tarnished, and the Tarnished eventually could try to go ahead and soak him in the mix of Rot and or Destined Death, because that could possibly work. I don't really think he could live long enough to pull that, and a lot of what the Tarnished has at his disposal could not work, because the Tarnished is universal, while this man, Time Patroller, is on a whole different matter of stand. So in conclusion, even with how interesting the fight can be in my explanation of the two characters, simply put, the Time Patroller can just conceptually erasure, beat the fucking dog shit out of the Tarnished, and just batter the men into actual death, or just flat out unmorale, or again, battlefield removal, which the Tarnished has no counter to from what I know. So yeah, it's wraps. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all for watching. Like, subscribe, comment if you would like. Share the video. Peace out, mommy. Be safe. Hey, this is Editing King here, late as fuck in the morning, but just go ahead and say, because I already made clear that the four-dimensional splitting thing hack like that wouldn't work sufficiently. I'm not saying he couldn't hurt Time Patroller, this wouldn't be a God of War fight, to keep it simple, just kind of sit in the area of like what if creativity, because I can't tell you how this fight would be clear out. But the whole Elden Ring grass thing, as a lord, I couldn't really say would do that much more sufficiently, and Frenzied Flame has more chances to maybe beat the case of the Time Patroller. I forgot to go and possibly speak about that, but simply put, I still think most of the time the Tarnished would lose, because Frenzied Flame, even though being a crazy form hack and conceptually embodies something that would be very harder to actually try to kill by the Time Patroller, it wouldn't really make a difference. And even with madness growing into play, the Time Patroller has counters to mind hacks and or has defended against a lot of odds that you couldn't say be defeated by with that. So I love the Tarnished. Elden Ring fans, fuck up. Balanced.